Right, so we're going to continue looking at the Enlightenment and the philosophers and their ideas. And our next gentleman is Denis Diderot, editor of the Encyclopedia. Now, you've all heard of encyclopedias before. Good chance you've never seen one, though, because now we have the internet, right? But back in the day, like when I was growing up, if you wanted to know something, you went to the encyclopedia. We had a big set of them at home. And if I wanted to learn something, or may I need to write a report on, let's say, Voltaire, I would go to the V's, right? And I would pull it down and I would look up Voltaire and I'd read about Voltaire. Or if I had a paper on gravity, I'd go to the G's and pull that one off the shelf and I would look it up, right? So an encyclopedia gathers knowledge. But for Diderot, it wasn't knowledge for the sake of knowledge. All of this had a purpose. It was to combat superstition and false thought. He wanted to gather as much information as he could to promote rationalism. And now he was the editor, not the author. And so he would reach out to other people to write articles, like Voltaire. Voltaire wrote many articles for his encyclopedia about freedom of religion, for instance, and history of the church. Right? Others would write articles about Newton and Copernicus and Galileo and the heliocentric theory and Aristotle and Plato and you name it, right? Gunpowder. There was even a recipe to make rouge makeup in there, right? So you're trying to gather together as much knowledge as you can. And his encyclopedia promoted ideas of the Enlightenment, like freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion. That's why eventually the encyclopedia in multiple countries gets banned, it gets outlawed. Monarchs freaked out over it because it questioned their authority. And that's something the Enlightenment teaches us is the importance of ideas, right? And the importance of freedom of thought. That's why governments sometimes try to control what you see and what you read and what you think, because your ideas might be a threat to them. So his own encyclopedia was banned in his native France for quite a while. Right? Another area where the philosophers tried to apply rationalism was in economics. And one of the popular theories among the philosophers that had a huge impact on the development of our country is laissez-faire. Laissez-faire economic theory. Burn it in your brain. You'll hear it in multiple history classes and economic classes in high school and in college. Basically, the idea was the government should not intervene with the economy. Hands off the economy. Do not try to control the economy. The government shouldn't. Let the economy run itself. Have as few regulations and rules on it as possible. And what is considered the best defense of laissez-faire was a book called The Wealth of Nations, written by Adam Smith. This book was very popular among quite a few of our founding fathers. In fact, Adam Smith said that in his book Wealth of Nations, the government only has three jobs: have an army to protect the nation, have police to protect the people, and then to build public works. Really big stuff that's too expensive for an individual, roads, bridges, canals, dams, harbors, that kind of stuff. Other than that, the government should keep their hands off. Right? And many of our founding fathers supported this idea. Right? So you look at the economic history of the United States, it starts with a laissez-faire policy. Now you fast forward to 2016, our government does intervene in the economy. It does regulate it. Sometimes it has to. A good example is it makes pharmaceuticals companies tell us the side effects of medicine. Those companies probably don't want to tell us the side effects, but the government makes them tell us, so we, the consumers, are aware of that. Health inspectors, right? Making sure the restaurant meets health codes. That's the government intervening in the economy, right? Telling that restaurant what to do. But I think we all agree we want the health inspector at the restaurant, right? We want to make sure that where we eat follows certain rules so we know it's safe to eat there. So it's really hard to have pure laissez-faire today. What we argue about today is how much government intervention should there be, right? How far can the government go? For instance, in our country, government still doesn't set prices, for instance. Government does not own major companies. Governments do not own the power companies, for instance, right? So we still have elements of laissez-faire in our economy. Another area where they're going to apply their rationalism is in our justice system. There's this man named Beccaria. He wrote a very important essay on justice, right? And we're going to see his ideas about torture and the death penalty and his influence on the United States, right? According to Picard, torture is stupid. It's not just evil, it's not just barbaric, it's not just crude, it's stupid. And it is. He argued in his essay, he said if you arrest somebody and they're innocent and you torture them trying to figure out what actually happened, you just tortured an innocent person. And that's not fair and stupid. Right? And if you arrest them and they're guilty and you've tortured them, well, that torture, that punishment has probably exceeded their crime. That is stupid. You could also argue that if someone is innocent and you torture them long enough, they'll confess to anything even if they don't do it, and that is stupid. You look at our government, right? We have no cruel and unusual punishment. So there's another Enlightenment idea, Vlasov idea that influenced our government. Now he also argued that the death penalty was stupid. He said it was illogical that governments say don't murder people because that's horrible. And if you murder somebody, we will murder you. We will do the horrible thing no one's ever supposed to do, so don't do the horrible thing that you're never supposed to do, or we'll do it to you. He said that's just dumb. Now, our own country, we did not adopt that idea. But if you fast forward today, right, some states have banned the death penalty. Right? But we did adopt his no torture policy, and the no death penalty policy our nation did not adopt. But he also said that it's logical that the law treat everyone exactly the same, that the law should not see whether or not you're rich or poor. See, in Europe, nobility often had special sets of laws just for them and loopholes and things that didn't apply to them. He said that's illogical, that's irrational, that's not fair. You look at our government, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Right? So we adopted his idea of equality under the law. He also said it's rational, it's logical that you should be considered innocent until proven otherwise. It's very rational, it's very logical, it's very fair. And you look at our government, once again, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Right? So you look at Picard's ideas from his essay on justice, no torture, we got that. Equality under the law, we got that. Innocent until proven guilty, we got that. Right? And all that's very rational, it's very logical, it's very fair. And they're not American ideas. Right? They're Enlightenment ideas. They're from the philosophers. Most of the philosophers were French, and some of them were English, right? So the ideas that we consider American aren't necessarily American. They're ideas we got from others. What makes our country so special and unique was we were one of the first to take a bunch of these Enlightenment ideas and actually try them to see what would happen. Right? They actually called our country the Great Experiment, right? And there were those who thought we would fail, but it's worked out pretty good so far.